So the well-known tech investor Marc Andreessen has this pretty controversial diagnosis of what he thinks is a massive problem in America. He's basically saying the country is completely failing to tap into its greatest resource, which is, its own people. So let's break down his whole argument and really get into his take on what's happened to opportunity and the American dream. And he kicks things off with this really provocative quote. The gist of it is this: if you're an ordinary family, not on the coasts, and you've got a really smart kid, well, the dream of getting them into a top university, he says you're basically fooling yourself. He sees this as a huge, massive bottleneck for opportunity right at the very top. So, what does he think is causing it?
Okay, so according to Andreessen, it all starts with the admissions process at those elite, top-tier universities. He argues that over the past, say, 50 years, the entire rulebook has been rewritten, and this new game has created a system that he believes just pushes a ton of incredible American talent right to the sidelines. Now, at the very core of his argument are these two big forces that he says have totally reshaped who gets in: DEI programs and high-skilled immigration policies. His claim is that these two things have sort of merged together to, in effect, crowd out kids from the American heartland. So he breaks it down into three main ways people get into these top schools today. You've got the first one, donors and legacies, which, and this is his phrase, he calls DEI for white people. Then you've got the second track, which is the official DEI programs. And finally, number three is this big influx of international students. In his mind, these three streams take up so much space that there's barely any room left for anyone else. And to drive home that first point, the legacy one, he tells the story about a friend who got into Yale to play, get this, varsity croquet. I mean, come on. For him, this is the perfect, almost absurd example of how exclusionary the whole system is. These super niche sports and legacy spots that are really just designed to help the people who are already at the top. So what's the end result of this whole three-stream system? Well, according to Andreessen, it's pretty brutal. He straight up claims that if you're a smart kid from the Midwest or a rural area or the South, your odds of getting into one of these elite schools are, and I'm quoting here, nearly impossible, basically zero. All right, now this is probably his most controversial claim. He argues that this system actually ends up hurting African Americans too. He points back to this New York Times story from like 20 years ago and says that institutions basically found a workaround. They figured out they could recruit students from, say, Africa to hit their diversity numbers, which still count as Black, but in the process, they end up bypassing talented African American kids right here at home. But here's the thing. For Andreessen, this isn't just some abstract debate about college admissions. No way. He connects this whole educational bottleneck directly to politics. He thinks it has really deep political consequences and is a major reason for the divisions we're seeing in the country right now. Think about it from his perspective. He's saying that when families in the middle of the country feel like the entire system is rigged against their kids, it's not just about being disappointed. It goes way deeper. It creates this powerful sense of alienation, this feeling that they're being actively excluded, even targeted, by the so-called coastal elites who are running the show. And he says this isn't just a simple disagreement over policy. It becomes something way more personal. The feeling he describes is one of real animosity. It's this gut feeling that the system isn't just accidentally broken. It's been designed this way, specifically to keep their kids out. And that feeling, he says, is the fuel for what he calls angry populism. It's a political anger that bubbles up when a huge chunk of the country feels like the ladders of opportunity have just been yanked away, leaving their kids completely cut out of the loop, with no clear path to success. Okay, but the whole university problem, for Andreessen, that's just one piece of a much, much bigger economic puzzle. He zooms out from there to give his diagnosis for why the fundamental parts of the American dream now feel totally out of reach for so many people. And he keeps it pretty simple. He defines the American dream with just three basic things. First, a house you can afford near good jobs. Second, quality healthcare for you and your family. And third, a good education for your kids. Pretty straightforward, right? But he says these are the very things that are slipping through our fingers. This is where he points out this really weird paradox. You look at anything technology really gets its hands on. Think TVs, computers, smartphones, they all get better and cheaper over time, right? But then you look at those three pillars of the American dream: housing, healthcare, and education, and their costs are just going through the roof. So he asks the big question, what the heck is going on here? Why? And he has this simple two-step explanation for it. Step one, he says in these critical areas, the government puts all these regulations in place that restrict supply.
So think about zoning laws making it hard to build new houses, or all the hurdles for certifying new universities. Then, step 2, to deal with the fact that prices are now super high, the government turns around and subsidizes demand. They pour money into things like student loans and homebuyer credits. And the result of that two-step dance? Well, it's basic economics. When you throw a bunch of subsidy money at a problem where the supply is fixed, you don't actually make things more affordable. You just cause prices to skyrocket. So the very policies that are supposed to help people end up pouring gasoline on the fire and making the whole problem way, way worse. So after laying out this pretty bleak picture, you'd think his conclusion would be pessimistic, right? But actually, it's the opposite. It's surprisingly optimistic. He believes the solution is hiding in plain sight, and it lies with the very same people who've been cut out of the system. Yeah, this is where his argument really pivots. He basically says that the broken system that pushed out millions of talented Americans has accidentally created something amazing, a giant, untapped reservoir of human potential. All that ambition, all that brain power, it's just sitting there, waiting to be unleashed on the world. And he gives a fantastic example of what this could look like. LASIK eye surgery. Think about it. It's not really part of the traditional regulated healthcare system. It's a consumer product you pay for with cash. And what happened? It acts just like a new iPhone. The technology gets better every year, and the price has just completely collapsed over time. He holds this up as the model, the LASIK model, for how we could fix housing, education, and everything else. So at the end of the day, his point is that this isn't really a technology problem. The tech is there. It's a problem of will. The potential for this amazing future of abundance, where things get better and cheaper, is right there for the taking. But he says to actually get there, we as a society have to make a choice. We have to decide we want it and be willing to break those old, broken models and start building something totally new. And that really leaves us with the million-dollar question at the heart of his entire argument, doesn't it? Is he right? Can we really overcome these huge, entrenched systems just with a new culture of building and technological innovation? And if we can, could that unlock all this untapped talent he talks about and create a whole new era of American prosperity? It's definitely a powerful idea to think about.